What hobby seems expensive? If you squint really hard, gaming. The hours I have spent gaming make the money I've spent on gaming pretty reasonable. PC or console. The low investment for games versus hours of fun is great with gaming, so long as you're patient and don't suffer from FOMO. Prices of games are very cheap a year after launch or longer. This is how you say you're not a Nintendo gamer without saying you're not a Nintendo gamer. Retro gaming on mini consoles via art/SBC gaming. One little device $4.50 and you get the entire gaming library from the Atari 2600 to the first PlayStation. No gacha, no ads, no in-app purchase. I missed a ton of gaming while having kids, and it easily will take me the next few years to catch up. I have like 14,000 hours across 3 games, and bought my PC 10 years ago for like 1,500. Not a lot of hobbies that give you that amount of value, and I use my PC for much more than just gaming. Gaming is very cost efficient. The upfront costs can be significant. If you choose to splurge on good stuff, you can still have tons of fun gaming on an old laptop if you're primarily into indie games. You only really need expensive stuff if you play a lot of modern releases. Once you have the gear, be it a $3,000 gaming PC or a console or a shitty old laptop, the cost/hour ratio is nuts. I've gotten games on sale for like $10 that I have several hundreds of hours in. Game sales are the biggest thing that will drive how much you end up paying for the hobby. If you are buying every game new at launch, it's going to cost a whole lot more than if you are willing to wait a while and get games when they go on sale. Lots of games end up 60 to 80% off after a year on the market. For example, the last 3 Tomb Raider games. I got the first of the series new for like $50 when it came out. The other 2 I waited and got them both on sale for $10 each, saving a ton. I still had plenty of other games to play, so it's not like I was just doing nothing waiting. When you get to 500 hours in GTA 5 and realize you paid $12 for it on Steam, that's a pretty good ROI. Electroplating can get everything you need to start for under $100. Oh man, here I go down another rabbit hole. I've never heard of electroplating as a hobby. How often do you do this and what are you electroplating? I make keys. My stepdad and my FIL both like antique keys as decorations, and I like making things with epoxy. But I didn't want to spend all my free time in antique shops, so I looked some up online, printed a few pages of key shapes I like, used the prints as a guide to sculpt keys from clay, and then electroplate them with copper. Since it's real metal, I just let the keys sit until they've built a nice bit of patina and then dump them into a mold and slather them with epoxy. You know, I've been thinking about electroplating some of my Bionicle parts. Every time I watch one of those electroplate your 3D prints of videos, they lose me at the sanding. Everyone thinks woodworking is sexy until they hear about the sanding. It's like 90% sanding. Cooking well, you probably already cook. Now watch some YouTube videos and refine your skills. Granted, good ingredients can be a bit pricey. You can make complete garbage with expensive ingredients. You can make great, satisfying food with cheap ingredients. That's a slippery slope. First you look into cheaper ingredients, then you look at better value ingredients, then you start looking at how you can grow your own food, then you are gardening, then you are fishing, then you are foraging. Next thing you know, you spend all your time outside and have no time left for internet. Can confirm. Wife started a garden last year and now we're moving to a cave in the mountains to live off the land. We sing Something in the Way by Nirvana a lot. Cave moss is delicious. Underneath the Bridge by Nirvana. Something in the Way. Not sure you care, but in case you do, that's the song. A great gateway is to think of some food you like to get from a restaurant or takeaway that is way out your comfort zone for cooking and try to really nail it. Ideally something you really like and could eat fairly often. Watch a bunch of videos, get the gist of all the different steps/processes and start to note where each video is just doing its own twist or thing that is non-essential. Like really understand that one thing and keep at it. Refine it. Yep, it's the one hobby that immediately gives you returns. Cooking is fun and one of the most interesting things you can do. Also, feeding people is the nicest thing you can do. Also, it impresses the ladies. I'm slowly updating my Canadian pantry with Asian sauces to make the expensive Chinese food takeout at home. Cooking and baking your food in the long run is cheaper and you can change things up to your preferred tastes. I like to make stuff really spicy, so a cheesecake at home with sriracha sauce mixed into it was the best cheesecake I've ever eaten. Costed the price of one cheesecake slice at a restaurant for an entire cake, which I could freeze cut up and grab and go whenever I needed it. Investing into a vacuum sealer and deep freezer has saved me so much money by preparing and cooking in bulk. Racing horses. You can just go out to a farmer's field and run as fast as you can. Bullfighting, same. Hey, Ferdinand, your mom's a fucking cow. D&D. All you really need is a PDF of the player handbook and $5 of dice. The DM needs the monster manual. There's a ton of fancy accessories you can buy later, but it's cheap to start.
Yeah.
But you need friends to play with.
Nah.
You just need people to play with, they can become friends later. Hardest part of being a DM is getting the party together to play. I've basically told my regulars now. I will be ready the moment you walk in the door. You fuckers need to figure out when that will be. I just don't have the energy or patience to manage all your schedules and requirements and write a novel's worth of content for a campaign. It's been 3 weeks since our last session. My plans are not working out. I've been playing with 3 guys for 2 years. We all play online cause 3 of us live in New York and 1 lives in Seattle. 2 of us have unconventional schedules due to work. It's a bitch to get together. We haven't played for almost 2 years in a campaign we played for 3 years. As a DM whose players all have kids and hectic schedules, we just try to get in 1 session a month. It helps when we try to schedule it at the end of a session. Then all I have to do is prep for that day. Good luck. For years we used to organize our sessions this way. Eventually, like you, I got sick of never playing. So I laid down the law. I told them a Thursday night is game night. I'm playing whether you're here or not. Lo and behold, they turn up every week now, laughing face. Exempting family stuff and prior arrangements. I'm not a monster. Some people just look up general rules and freeball it. Kind of atrocious when you're experienced, but still wholesome and fun. This is true. A friend of mine usually DMs. When we go away on camping weekends, we all basically come equipped with a single D20, a pen, and paper. The DM runs things based on that only. D&D just gives guidelines and the DM really makes the rules as they see fit. Heck, you don't even need the dice anymore w/virtual tabletops. Now, I've spent a lot of money on D&D, but I can do that because I have no responsibilities and plenty of money. However, of what I actually use as a DM game to game, it probably cost me about $100. Now with all the books, dice, subscriptions, minis, etc., I'm probably $3,000 in. Lockpicking, a decent set of half a dozen starter picks is like $25. Use locks that are lying around to start. I use that hobby to make a lot of money actually. Just kidding. Just bought a really nice starter set to get me going. Now to actually dedicate the time. Me too. My husband thinks I'm crazy. Cut to him lending me his kit. The cost of lockpicking as a hobby isn't in the picks, it's the locks that get you.
Yeah.
But if you sell the goods behind these locks on a black market, you can offset the costs. Reading. Libraries are free. So is LibGen. Birding. A lot of libraries offer birdwatching kits with binoculars and an ID guide. You can also download the Merlin app for free. That Merlin app is the best free app I've ever had. Free and no ads? How often does that happen? It's a project created by Cornell University. No ads because it's a reference tool. Same with eBird. So what's the hobby exactly? Do you just keep a Pokédex essentially of all the different birds you see? You can and many do. I just kind of vibe and appreciate the wildlife. I do get excited when I identify a bird I rarely see or especially when I don't think I've ever seen it before. Is the Merlin app considered the best? I want to start tracking what I see. I think so. You can identify by sound, by photo, or a step-by-step identification. You can also use eBird to see the hotspots and checklists from your area. It doesn't sound expensive, but if you are looking for cheap hobby, disc golf is really cheap to start with. Just need 3 to 5 discs and go to play. Can do easily under $50 at first. The hidden cost is the weed. I don't hide it. Disc golf baby. Also, 95% of courses are free to play and there's 15K plus in the US alone. Big difference from traditional golf. I played as a kid with 1 disc. It's not efficient, but you can do it. Second, for disc golf, you do not need a backpack full of discs. I have a nutsack bag that has 6 discs in it and I will play any course with that bag alone. Programming. People think you need a powerful PC, you don't. You basically need a functional device, and an internet connection, optional. Programming as a hobby seems confusing to me. 2 perspectives. Some people like puzzles like Sudoku or crosswords. There are lots of interesting programming challenges that build upon mechanisms and tools that you learn, data structures, etc. And if you like mathematics and logic, solving these problems can be really fun. At the end of every year, there's this thing called the Advent of Code where one problem gets released every day from the 1st to the 25th of December, and tens to hundreds of thousands of people participate every year. I mostly join because of the memes and the subreddit. On the other end of the spectrum, there are people that just want to build things. They don't necessarily care about programming in itself. but they're trying to create something cool. It's not too different from woodworking or knitting and all that. Some people have passion programming projects, be it a game or a tool, and it's not hard for these things to occupy a huge chunk of your time in an enjoyable way. Of course, there are lots of people that also enjoy both. And there are lots of passion projects that require deep appreciation for the abstractions and tooling, but yeah, programming is fun. I like making HTML websites for the fun of it. I'm not good, but I feel like I get a little better every time. I got into woodworking and skydiving over the past few years. There's a relatively high upfront cost, but after a while they're still expensive. Wait. I live by the woodworker's dying creed, namely, if I die please don't let my wife sell my woodworking tools for what I told her I paid for them. I'd love to get into it, but I don't have the skills or space. I wish maker spaces were more common. Reading. Most of the books I read I get from my library. Libby app as well. Reading does not sound expensive at all. Looking at clouds is a cheap hobby, but it does get expensive when you keep looking at clouds and forget to go to work. Only if they fire you. But marrying the boss's daughter so that they don't. Well, that gets really expensive. Knitting. It's relaxing and provided you're reasonably careful, you generally end up with something useful when you're done. Geocaching and orienteering if you're looking for outdoor fun. If you're wondering whether to get into knitting or crocheting, I recently found out knitting uses less yarn than crocheting. This devastated me as a crocheter. Crochet uses more yarn, but knitting is way easier to epically screw up by dropping a stitch, so sometimes it's a fair trade. It tracks, though. Have you made a crocheted garments? Those fuckers are weighty if you want any level of coverage. Knitting is amazing until you start wanting wearables with nicer yarns. I work at an unrelated, not yarn/craft, shop and just had a conversation with a customer who knits. She literally turned up her nose at my choice of yarn for a sweater because it's machine washable and not pure wool. I spent about $25 on 5 skeins of yarn that can take some wear and experimentation. The same thing in fancy pure wool would have cost me easily $200 plus. Arduino. It's surprisingly low cost. You can get kits of parts online quite cheaply, and it's great for learning to code and for kids to work on as a project making stuff. Even getting into robotics with it is sub $100. Tabletop gaming. Most big names have basic rules available for free online. Photography sounds pricey, but you can start with just your phone and still get amazing shots. Fishing. Believe me, the internet makes it seem like it's expensive, but that's a mix of showmanship and addictive spending. The hobby itself can be quite affordable. I found rod and reel sets at yard sales and on FB Marketplace as cheap as $5. Hooks to basic lures can be had at Walmart for like $1.50 to $5. And honestly, that and maybe a set of needle nose pliers is all you actually need, alongside a license. Don't fall victim to thinking you need the fancy bullshit online to have fun. It doesn't take a boat and $200 swim baits to catch fish and enjoy your time in nature. I second this, but it's only worth it if you have free and easy access to a body of water. My 11-year-old has taken up fishing over the last few months, and he hasn't been able to catch anything at the creek near us. He found a pond, but turns out it's in a senior-gated neighborhood. He asked Nikki and offered the gate person any fish he caught, and he said if it's catch and release he'd put them back. Said worker let him in and some Karen came up to him and asked what he was doing and how he got in. Pimpin', but it ain't easy. I should say fitness. Frankly, it may not be cheap, but considering the alternative, health effects, I would choose this as a cheaper option. I agree. I exercise to stay healthy, so I don't need a membership to a gym or a bunch of equipment. I did buy a set of dumbbells and a yoga mat off Amazon. I just pull up 30-minute dumbbell videos on YouTube and work out almost daily. Been at it for 2.5 years. It's the longest I've kept a routine and I'm the healthiest I've ever been. All for a $1.80 investment. It can be cheap. Planet Fitness membership is like $10 a month. You can find cinder blocks for free if you look hard enough, and those are basically Minecraft kettlebells. You also don't need a membership for exercise. Maybe calisthenic workouts can be done without any equipment. I don't personally do a ton of these exercises, but it can get you in great shape with just your body weight alone. I knew a dude in my dorm in college who was one of the more fit guys in the dorm, and I found out it's all from calisthenic exercises. He was muscular too, not just in good shape. Computing and programming can often be super cheap or just completely free if you have a computer. Art. Literally, grab a pencil or any random unused pen that you can find on your home and draw it on a large piece of printing paper. Normally people will mostly use a writing pencil to draw random cool things, and that's okay. Jerking off. Just some electrolytes to recharge. I don't consider jerking off to be expensive. Art collecting. I go to thrift stores and scrounge around looking for cool art that people sometimes donate. 99.99% of the stuff there is mass-produced decor art, but once in a while you find a diamond in the rough. After like a year of trolling Goodwills a couple of times a week, my walls are covered with signed originals and numbered prints that collectively cost me like $50. Dirt farming. It sounds glamorous, but it's cheap and unrewarding. Bomb defusing. Pair of snips. If it goes wrong, it's now someone else's problem. People keep listing stuff that doesn't sound expensive at all, and they just confirmed that it isn't. Yoga. You can do it for free. Who the hell thinks yoga is expensive? Hiking. The All Trails app is free and shows hundreds of routes around your local area. Great way to explore new places, and the upfront cost is a pair of decent walking boots/shoes and maybe a rain jacket and backpack, but most of the time people already own these. Expensive and inexpensive hobbies are rather relative. Astronomy can be done by just standing outside. There are some fantastic free apps that will tell you what you're looking at. And a secondhand pair of binoculars or a telescope can be had for under $100. I do a lot of sailing, and a well-used but serviceable 28-foot sailing yacht that when new would have cost an equivalent of $100,000 can be bought for under $5,000. That seems very cheap to me for what you get in return, but if you can't afford to pay rent or buy anything other than staple food ingredients, everything must feel out of reach. Tennis, racket, balls, and a public court. Where do you find people to play with? That's often the snag. I accidentally knocked my teeth out with my tennis racket earlier this year. Tennis got very expensive quick. That really depends on having free accessible public courts. Also, tennis ball costs add up as the balls eventually go dead, which will happen faster as you get better. I wish I knew. I'll tell you one thing, it's not electric guitar or motorcycle riding. Similarly, banjos are fucking expensive. A low-end banjo that is not a complete piece of Amazon Chinesium shit is gonna run you about $500. Leatherworking, cheap Amazon tools, free videos, and some small amount of leather. You can make a knife sheath in no time, or the cheapest possible thing. A valet tray. Easy to learn, hard to master. Yep, the real cost is time. I got into it as a hobby shortly before COVID. Edit. There's a decent subreddit for it, but they can be a bit critical tbh. Oh man. This reminds me I bought some tools and some scrap leather about 2 years ago, still sitting in the box. Knife fighting? Just find a knife and a stranger. You can get rubber training knives for cheap. If you're actually interested in contact training knife fighting, they're $20 to $30, and all you need is a partner. You can also get training knives for butterfly for pretty reasonable prices. Amateur or ham radio. You can study to pass the exam for free. The exam fee is $35, and a cheap bow phone will get you on local repeaters. Ham boning, it's actually free to do. That can get quite expensive unless you bone the same ham over and over again, which is gross. Ham bone. You just do what you're shown. You can even do it when you're alone. Let your friends listen on the phone. Throw in some hollers and moans. Don't mind if your wife starts to groan. If you want cheap fun, you got a ham bone. Retro gaming. Sure. People shell out 100s and 1000s to complete their sets of physical copies of consoles and games, but there are dozens upon dozens of emulation devices starting at less than $50 that can handle thousands of retro games. Source, me. I just got one and am having a great time reliving some games I played as a child. Walking. I can't think of a hobby that sounds less expensive. Reading. Libby is one of the best apps I've ever been introduced to. Sign up at your local library, or multiple, and read/listen to countless books for the cost of just signing up. This one. Join a library, it's free. Juggling. Decent kit is $10 per ball. Legitimately the first answer I've seen in this thread that is actually cheap. Or just ball up some socks. Super unpopular opinion, but the people have to know. Miniature painting and war games. Yes, even Warhammer. The hobby is set up to make you want to spend thousands of dollars to get started. The reality is you can find something you like looking at, but a set of 10 minis for $45 on Amazon. Grab a basic set of hobby paints and brushes for another $50 to $100. And spend many hours painting those things to your heart's content. If you buy into a cheap discount box for around $140, you can spend literal months assembling and painting that fucker. It only becomes expensive when you don't focus on the artistic side of things and you end up buying more and more unassembled models. You lie. This opinion brought to you by the forces of chaos. I agree, too many people think they need a 2K army next month. Instead, spend that much time on a squad. I truly think $20 a month would give most miniature painters a backlog. Gambling. Start your new hobby on the 5-cent slots and work your way up. I play tournament poker. I started with $0 and my total profit over the last few years is about $9,000. It's my bankroll. When I check my stats, I have over $100,000 in buy-ins. Stealing candy from a baby. Too easy. I dunno. Mr. Burns got shot for trying it. Bouldering, indoor rock climbing. The upfront cost for shoes is about it. You can climb for hours on one-day pass. Cheap every once in a while maybe, but I had to quit because of the costs. With a membership, a year of climbing cost me almost $2,000. This doesn't include chalk and shoes. Bouldering can be done outside too. I'm not sure about that OP. Even though chalk bag and beginner shoes are around $100 to $150, gym memberships are lucrative at around $100 per month on average. I had fun in rentals and Groupon day passes every time they refreshed, but I couldn't afford to enter the hobby until I got my first real job after college. Honestly, as a very limited climber, I really don't think it's a great value. Day passes aren't cheap, at least in Houston, and the monthly rate is way too expensive for me to climb the same dozen V0 or V2s over and over. One thing to keep in mind, most people's forearms give out after a few routes, unless they're very conditioned. I could say the same thing about running. Buy a single pair of shoes and that day you could go running for hours. But more people take a while to actually build such endurance. A month at my local gym costs more than shoes. Bouldering outdoors you just need pads and shoes, which can last a long time. Besides transportation it's free. What? Maybe in-shape climbers can climb for hours on one-day pass, but they didn't get to be in that shape using day passes. Respectfully, gym bouldering is not cheap. But bouldering is also not restricted to a gym, you know. There's real outdoor bouldering where all you need is shoes, chalk, and a crash pad. $100 a month membership at the only one in my city. $18 day pass. Not cheap homie. I built myself a bouldering wall. $1,000 in materials and a day of work with some friends to help. Climbed for years, only real expense was chalk. Highly recommend Sinrock holds. By far the best Eve tried. Maybe divisive, but shooting. Many people that are super into guns spend many thousands and thousands of dollars on really nice guns and high-end ammunition if they shoot regularly. However, you can also buy a Ruger 10-20 seconds, 10-round magazine that shoots .22 LR ammo for around $200 or so, and the ammo is dirt cheap. It is endless amounts of fun. Also, if you really cared about this, it's a hell of a lot more effective as a home defense weapon than a frying pan. Getting hit with 10 rounds of .22 would suck really bad. Absolutely. .22 might not have the stopping power of a .45 hollow point or a 12G, but getting shot will always suck and most people don't want to find out if you're rocking .22, .38, or .50 AE. And 10 rounds of anything should stop all but the most meatied out psycho, especially if you're able to put them all center mass. Even if you're shooting a .22 the range fees add up. I used to blow off steam on lunch when I was a manager by going to the range. Anything other than a .22 and you're in for $100 bucks for a trip to the range. If you live in the middle of nowhere it could be super cheap. Only in countries with no law to have a mandatory gun safe. Those aren't cheap at all, then licensing. Membership of a shooting club, transport case, etc. It's only cheap in Muyurikawa. Sailing. Cheaper than you think if you live near a sailing club that races. You just need non-marking shoes and wet weather gear, and some sailing gloves to start. You can buy expensive stuff later. Most sailing clubs have a racing sailing evening during the week like Wednesday or a sailing day during the weekend like Sunday, where if you go and talk, you might find yourself a ride. You don't need to own a boat. Lots of boats need crew like foredeck or a grinder, someone to haul in lines or somebody to beat rail meat on a larger boat. You don't have to do much, you just have to flatten the boat out. You can take lessons in a small boat class to get the basics or just hang around during the races. It's usually round the buoy races in the summertime. Also, the sailing community tends to be fairly serious about sailing, so be sure to tell them you're a novice. Good luck and happy sailing. I've always been curious about this. I assume sailing clubs are mostly in the ocean areas? If you crew on a sailboat, it's eventually cash flow positive since the owner, who typically steers, pays for everything, including crew lunches and drinks, as well as the boat itself, maintenance, entry fees, etc. You're on the hook for your own clothes, but you can often get used foul weather gear for $100 or less, or hit your club's lost and found. Find something that fits, give the gear a good wash or two, and you're set. Other stuff like glasses, baseball cap, warm layers, and beanie you can get an outdoor store like REI. Always avoid marine stores since they mark up prices. Free meals every weekend, and you get to enjoy a teamwork-oriented sport with good camaraderie. Hard to find anything cheaper. Even a gym is more expensive at $50 or more per month. Crewing is the way to go. A rich guy buys a toy and now he needs a handful of poor guys to help him play with it. Birding. Combo that with trees/plants. Cheap and useful, walks in the nice fresh air. Stick collecting. For some reason I didn't think I could afford it, but then I realized picking up sticks is free. Sleeping can be done anywhere at any time. Retro audio equipment. Goodwill and garage sales have you covered. You can find high-end amps, cassette decks, CD players, record players, speakers for super cheap. Bushwreck hunting. It's a hobby my nephew and I invented. I'm not wealthy, far from it. My 10-year-old nephew comes from a wealthy family. He has all the expensive toys and Lego etc. I can't afford any of that. He often comes to stay with me out in the country, Australia, and we find cheap fun things to do. Recently we decided to drive around randomly in the bush on old logging tracks from way back in the day. I live in a region surrounded by vast forests, and we look for old abandoned cars, which has been pretty successful. He gets a thrill out of finding them, and I get satisfaction trawling Google Earth looking for potential spots where people may have dumped old cars. Last trip, he took some power tools and removed some parts as souvenirs. I'm not too sure his parents are terribly thrilled with him decorating his room with rusty old steering wheels and such. Cost. Cheap. A bit of fuel in the old 4x4 and some lunch at a local bakery. Only yesterday an old man was lamenting to me how some scoundrels have picked off the rare parts from his wood-stored 50s cars, like instrument clusters, light surrounds, etc. Just because it sits there in the woods doesn't mean the parts are free for all in the public domain. Rugby. All you need is cleats and a mouthguard and you're ready to go. You forgot rugby ball and friends. Anytime I see rugby mentioned, I remember the bumper sticker I once saw that said, "Give blood, play rugby." Bird watching. While it can get expensive if you go the top of the line optics route, you can easily get a decent pair of binoculars and a field guide for under a couple $100. Add to that apps like Merlin that are free and help ID birds based on pictures and even song. Plane, a car, a train spotting. Yes, I know it's very nerdy, but if your local airport has a viewing platform you can have a blast on a summer's eve watching big jets come in. No pressure to have a big expensive camera, your phone could probably do just fine. This also extends to photography in general. Film cameras or second-hand DSLRs can be really cheap and you will 100% be surprised how decent photos turn out if you really get stuck in. Playing chess. Astronomy. It sounds like you need a NASA budget and a $3,000 telescope, but you can literally just go outside and look up. A free stargazing app like Stellarium or Skyguide will show you what's what. And a cheap pair of binoculars lets you see craters on the moon and Jupiter's moons. Fountain pens. Yes, there are high-end brands and models that cost a lot, but you can find great writers for a few dollars and really make the experience of writing, thoughts, feelings, creative, so much more enjoyable. Giving blowjobs. Costs nothing. You even get a donation at the end. Fishing. That's a hobby that can get very expensive quite quickly. Ask me how I know. That's one of the ones that doesn't sound expensive. And indeed it can be done for really cheap, but then you get really into it and end up purchasing several $500 plus setups and owning a boat, plus a vehicle capable of towing it. I bought my first reel for like $35, Daiwa Crossfire, but the ones I like now are $350, Daiwa Saltist MQ, and now I've got my eyes on a $1,000 Daiwa Saltiga. Alpinism. People immediately envision rock climbing and skiing and ice climbing and glacier traversal and, yeah, that requires thousands of dollars in gear, but good old-fashioned find a peak and walk up it scrambling? You need a set of sturdy, grippy shoes and some decent trekking poles. It'll maybe cost you $200 in gear. Most of your expenses will be your gas bill getting to and from the bases of various summits. Programming. I mean you probably have a computer and internet. Singing. Brewing beer. Only hobby I know that can save you money in the long term. Cocaine. If you are a friendly person in the beginning will just offer it to you. It will get expensive afterwards though, so maybe don't do it, but listen to your heart, whatever makes you happy, man. Drag racing. I spend the same amount now as I did when I first got into it 35 years ago. It's weird that it hasn't been impacted by inflation, still costs the same. Every penny I have. Reading. A library card is free and so are the books. And you can buy used books at used bookstores and thrift stores, yard sales. You just have to sacrifice reading off of paper, like the ancient peoples before you. Adult coloring. Seems like a very cheap hobby, but once you see that the coloring books are like $15 each and the marker sets everyone online seems to use are like $40 plus, it doesn't seem so cheap for something you don't even know if you'll dig. I ended up at Ollie's where those same books are only $3 and I went to Walmart and got a set of Crayola Super Tips for like $10. Now a much more affordable way to try it out. Collage. Can use any kind of paper, magazines, gift wrap, junk mail, catalogs, scrap, scissors, X-Acto knife and glue. Magic the Gathering. Tons of fun to have with cheap commons or bulk rares. If you just ignore the competitive scene and high-level commander, proxies are free. Gardening. I set out with the goal to garden without spending any money. I compost food scraps, cardboard, and spent soil from houseplants in old plastic cat litter buckets. I gather fallen leaves for mulch, and strong and slash or thick branches for building up a small barrier around the edge and staking others in the ground to encourage spiders and dragonflies to hang out and catch the bad bugs. Put cardboard down to kill grass. My area is small though, so I let a bunch of the grass grow long, then pull it out with the roots. I spend under $5 for seeds and just harvest seeds and replant or let the herb seeds spread. Fermentation of your own kombucha. Pretty affordable and satisfying. Reading. Libraries have quite a selection, plus all free. Warhammer, if you can outrun the Games Workshop clerks. Reading. Get a library card and you're golden. However, you will probably meet reading's expensive brother, book buying. That hobby is not cheap. Flower pressing. I pick them growing wild or from my garden. Golf. You can get some second-hand clubs that will fit you for free off Facebook Marketplace or Gumtree etc. with a bit of looking. Pitch and putt golf for 9 holes is about a tenner in the UK. People think it's expensive, but it doesn't have to be at all. Cooking. You can start with basic tools and ingredients, yet it looks fancy when you plate it right. Plus, you end up saving money instead of eating out. Stargazing. A decent beginner telescope costs less than a fancy dinner. Surprisingly. 3D printing. You can get a high-quality printer and a good amount of material for under $500. But then you start printing stuff, and it honestly pays for itself. No, I'm not talking about selling prints, although a lot of people do. I'm talking about making functional parts on your printer. My printers have more than paid for themselves with car parts, repair parts, storage, tools, and everything else. If it's made of plastic, I don't buy it anymore. I just print it for pennies instead. Hell, I saved over $500 last week because the case for my car's key fob broke. But the fob itself was fine. Of course, the manufacturer doesn't sell just the case. I would have needed an entire key assembly, plus programming fees, even though I didn't need programming. They wouldn't sell it to me without that. I found a free model online in less than 5 minutes, and printed it in 2 hours for less than 10 cents a filament. Or the feet for my roller bag broke on my last trip. Do I buy another bag for $75 plus? Or do I design new feet, and print them for about 5 cents a filament? Even more simple stuff. My girlfriend got me a model train that I wanted to display on the wall in my living room. Nothing online looked decorative enough for a living room, and they were all $20 plus. One free online model and 50 cents of filament later. And it has a nice, decorative wall-mounted holder. Of course, you can also print decorative prints. I've also had some coworkers ask me for prints, and I'll do one that costs me less than $1 of filament, and they'll give me $20 to $30 for it. If you can do 3D modeling, CAD, Blender, then that's even better, because now you're making your own models. Once you start using it, you find uses for it everywhere. 3D printing is so useful, and nowadays, it's so easy. Welding. I got started for around $200, which isn't nothing, but still a lot less than you'd think. And 80 of that was a steel welding workbench I probably didn't actually need. Reading. Collecting media via piracy. After a while the storage can get expensive, though. Disc golfing. Cycling. You don't need a fancy bike, you can pick a decent one up for next to nothing. I would recommend at least getting a decent seat and learning how to properly size a bike if it's something a person wants to stick with though. Bad seats and poor fitment can induce long-lasting ailments. I bought a decent used mountain bike last year and a few parts were upgraded along the way. I figure with 100 to 125 rides per season on trails, in 5 years my cost will be less than $5 per ride. Inexpensive to get into, but your mind will convince yourself you need X, Y, and Z to save 0.04 watts on that local Strava segment.